here's a question for you. Is marriage overrated?
Why aren't people getting married anymore?
A new Pew Research poll found that 2 in 5 young adults think marriage is an outdated tradition.
Marriage rates are at their lowest right now.
Is marriage really even worth it?
More than half of marriages end in divorce.
If you get married, you have to be stuck with this person for the rest of your life, right? That's why you get married. So that's why it's declining. Why would you get married if you want to have just one partner when you can have multiple?
Marriage is stupid.
Welcome to the Married AF podcast, the self-proclaimed greatest marriage and relationship podcast in the world. We are your hosts, Matthew and Monica Powers. Baby, how you doing?
I'm a little irritated.
You're very irritated. Well, first off, before we get into why you're so irritated, real quick, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for watching, listening, subscribing, liking, all of those things, communicating. It's
the
humbling.
YouTube thing
it's amazing. YouTube, like, I know we're not dude perfect and all that, but nearly 5,000 subscribers for little old Married AF. Will take it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Cannot say it enough how much we appreciate it. As long as people are listening, I guess we'll continue to do this. When God decides, hey, people are done with you guys, we will be done with this. He's making that full decision for us. But thank you to everyone who is out there and listening. Share this with someone who might find it beneficial. Friend, family member, most definitely your spouse. If you're not listening to this together, well, it could be better.
You can do better.
Do you want to jump into why you're so pissed off this morning?
We just finished watching the new Netflix documentary, I guess, or docuseries, whatever it's called now.
Same.
Sure. On the Laci Peterson murders.
Yes.
Now, we kind of lived this.
We did. We fully remember this.
We were fresh out of high school.
Yes, we are early college years.
It was everywhere.
I mean, this was one of the biggest stories going at the time. And if you haven't heard of it, shouldn't take you long to be able to find out about it. But ultimately, husband and wife, she's pregnant, like eight and a half months pregnant with their first child. She goes missing, we will say. And it's just a whole storm and just an unraveling of all sorts of events that lead to the eventual conviction of the husband, Scott Peterson, for the murder of his wife, Laci, and their unborn son, Connor. But we lived it out. We watched the whole thing. We did not necessarily realize how closely related this was to the proximity of family we have in California, with them both attending Cal Poly, and that's where they met in San Luis Obispo. They lived in Morro Bay. I mean, we were just in Morro Bay this past Christmas.
6 months ago.
Hanging out, eating, shopping, doing the whole thing. Did not realize how close it was. We had family who was fully invested, who lives there. Now we fully understand why they were so invested, because this was so close to home.
This was what, 2002?
This was 2002. So she went missing, we'll say, Christmas Eve of 2002.
And the conviction, all that kind of stuff was 2004.
2004.
My first trip to Morro Bay, Los Osos, the Bay Area, where all the family lives, was 2003.
Yes.
We were not really sure why when we went. That was the major topic.
Yes.
Of conversation everywhere we went.
It was. And this was just in like when he was arrested was kind of, this was, I believe just before or after he got arrested was when we went out and visited. Because, I mean, of course, it was huge at the beginning, died down for a little bit, became huge again when they found the bodies, and then he was arrested and all that. But, yeah, we watched the documentary.
We were hardcore, oh, my gosh, we knew this, we knew that. Morro Bay, when they said Morro Bay, we were, wait a minute, what?
I know they show video of the huge, beautiful rock in Morro Bay.
Literally,
like,
the sticker
right
here on my computer is 3 stacks in a rock,
Exactly.
and they show the rock of Morro Bay, and I'm so confused. Did we know this and just completely forget about it? But now it makes so much sense thinking back of why our family was so hardcore, wanting to know all the evidence. And we were with every ounce of this docuseries until episode 3.
Yes, and just to kind of go through it, if you don't know, and surely most people listening vaguely remember this, if not, go and watch the documentary on Netflix, because it's all right there. It lays out the whole thing. Initially when she went missing, it was, this is this terrible story. She's been, she's been taken or something like that. But then as things begin to unfold, we just see how deceptive Scott Peterson was. He was so smug throughout all of it, just like everything's fine, everything's normal.
Never shed a tear.
Never seemed to show any type of emotion. Like, I know if you went missing, I would be completely unraveled.
Frantic.
Completely unraveled. Like, I wouldn't sleep. I would be in front of every person, every camera. I would be everywhere trying to do whatever I could. And whenever she went missing, we will say, from what he said, he had gone fishing on Christmas Eve
that morning
with your 8.5-month pregnant wife at home.
But also told somebody else he went to play golf.
But he came home. Wife wasn't home. Dog was in the yard with the leash on, but wife wasn't home. Her car was there. Her purse was there, but she wasn't home. But he decides he's going to wash his clothes.
Take off the clothes he was wearing. Wash those
Take
clothes.
a shower. Have some pizza before he makes a single phone call to anybody. And his first phone call was, she's missing. And whenever we're watching it, I was like, if I came home, and yes, we have technology today where it's easy to communicate. It's easy to track. I mean, we have find our phones on each other. I mean, we can see where each other are. But in that sense, immediately, I'm like, where in the world's my wife? Text, no response, no call. I'd call my parents, your parents, friends, family.
This is 2002 or 3.
This was 2002.
So think about that. We were just getting cell phones, like a mass.
Are you kidding me? We were playing Snake on your little Nokia, little tiny Nokia phone. Snake was all the rage. You had to text by pressing the numbers.
No, we weren't texting then.
But if you wanted to, because texts were expensive.
It cost 10 cents
per text or something like that. Free nights and weekends.
And receive. But we didn't text.
No, because it was expensive.
We didn't really know when you went to the menu in the settings, what was that for until college.
But when you wanted to text, it was 1, 2, 3. Pause. To get each letter, because you had to go to down the dial pad. How things have changed.
It's not like, I'm sure she had a cell phone. And he could have called and called and called. But he went straight to her parents.
Called her parents.
And said she's missing.
Yep.
Not a, hey, I can't find Laci. Have you guys seen her?
Or talked to her.
She's not at home. Her car's here. Her purse is here.
But she's not here.
She's not here.
And when they say no, it's all right, well,
let me call somebody else.
Let me call around. Let me know if you hear from her. Call her. Hey, have you talked to my wife? Have you talked? No. Okay. And then as time goes by,
call the best friends.
Yes. It was such a weird thing.
But his words were missing.
And
immediately.
There's no doubt throughout the whole story. And he had, he had this secret affair that no one else knew about.
That did not come out until 4 months. No,
she came out. It wasn't long after. It was a few days after she went missing. It was
all
supposedly
on the news,
but she had
everywhere.
No clue. He told her he wasn't married, and lied about that, and then said, well, he was before, but he lost his wife. So she's thinking, well, here's this.
He said he lost his wife was also the same day he bought a boat.
In secret, without telling anybody.
That he hid in a warehouse because he was a fertilizer salesman or
yes, sold fertilizer like for whatever.
Fertilizer.
Yep.
Yeah. And that was December 9th. And on Christmas Eve morning, she goes missing. It was like 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
She's gone.
So, yeah, I mean, he clearly had all this pre-planned. He definitely did it. We're not saying that at all. He clearly murdered his wife.
The
unborn child.
Had needle nose pliers.
With her
hair mangled in it.
On the boat. And I mean, all the evidence was there. He clearly did it. There's no doubt in that whatsoever. But a couple things towards the end of the documentary that really stuck out to you and to me. I know yours. I'm going to say another one that spoke out to me, and I was like, I don't fully understand it. And you see this a lot with trials that go big in murder cases. But the joy and happiness of random people whenever he was announced guilty.
They were outside the courthouse.
Now, I understand it. I get, justice has been served, and I think we all feel that way. But to see people so happy and cheering that, one, a woman and child were murdered, that the murderer, the husband, is now going to receive life in prison or the death penalty, it's still nothing to be so happy about. Yes, it's nice to see justice served, and it needs to be happened. But to see the pure joy and people cheering and smiling like their team just won the World Series over someone being convicted of murder, it's not anything that we want to see. And I thought when the jury came back a month later and gave him the death penalty, when the lead juror, the juror number one, who was on the interview, walked out, he had mentioned, people were saying, great job, how does it feel, and this and that. And his response to the cameras were, I'll let everyone judge that for himself. And what he said in the interview, and I totally agree with, was, still, we put a man to death. Mm-hmm. That's nothing we should feel good about. It's nothing we should be happy about. Even if he did something as terrible as this, we don't want to put people to death. And that's essentially, it's like he pulled the trigger. And that's for me, that's nothing we should be celebrating and be so happy about. Yes, we want to see justice served, but why are we celebrating such a tragedy in that sense?
I see that side of it, but I also see that the media blew this out of proportion to make everyone feel they were involved in the investigation, like they knew her and they were in their lives, they knew the families, they knew this. But I also feel maybe they're not celebrating the death penalty. I really think that they're celebrating justice.
Maybe.
That's what I want to believe. But when there's so much information put out there by the media, it turns people's mind. Politics
Completely.
are the same way.
Completely. Well,
and the algorithms that we have in different areas, they twist it to make you want.
They feed you more and more and more, so you continue to go.
They want you to believe what they are feeding you instead of you thinking for yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And the mother, I think I agree with what she said whenever the guilty verdict was given. The mother of Laci, people were congratulating her and saying how, you must be so happy. And she was like, I wasn't happy. She said there was relief. She said, but there's nothing happy about this.
A guilty verdict does not bring her daughter and grandson back.
Or the betrayal that happened. That's still a deep, deep wound, because she even said, this was my son-in-law. I loved him. And relief, I understand, but just some of the joy of that, it's hard for me to wrap my head around, because at the end of the day, it's a horrible, horrible tragedy. But this is the type of reaction that people have. And the lady in the media, who was one of the main media people, even said, look what we created. Like, she was almost felt guilty about it.
When he was arrested.
Oh my gosh,
yes.
Look at what we, the media, have done this. We have created, because they're not celebrities. They're just two random, normal, regular, everyday people. And she's like, we created this firestorm. This is on us.
They arrested him in San Diego.
Yes.
So they had to bring him back to Modesto.
Which was like
it was a 5 or 6 hour
hours.
drive. He wasn't in handcuffs. He was in the back of a detective's car. But when they arrived to book him, the streets were lined with people, and people holding signs that said Scott is a murderer.
Yes.
Murderer, baby killer, wife and baby killer. Looking at that and seeing that back in 2004, I understand why they were doing that. Now, you don't have to go do that. You have it on your phone. It's in the palm of your hand, and you can just type out all your thoughts instead.
Yes. Yeah. And now
very frustrating.
And now it's exponentially worse because we all have web muscles and we hide behind our keyboards and we're just there's no repercussions, no consequences for anything we say or do. I'm just going to throw it out there and bam, and that's it. But that was one frustrating part of it, was just that it seemed like the celebration at the end of it. It's a horrible tragedy. Nothing about it should be celebrated. Yes, justice was served, and that's a good thing when justice is served. We serve a just God. We don't serve a fair God, but we serve a just one, and that's all we ever want. But the other part of this, and the very last of it, and I'll let you kind of explain it, that was really like, what?
Well, before we hit that one, the one before that made us pause and look at each other in disbelief. The affair. They called her a mistress. He lied to this woman and said he was not married. And then he lied to her again and said he was married, but he lost his wife. She's thinking, oh my gosh, this must have been terrible. When you say lost, you think they're dead.
Yeah, they
already dead.
You lost them in a tragedy, a car
accident. They're no longer
sickness.
Attached to you.
Yeah.
Whatever the horrible incident may have been.
Mm-hmm.
She fell for it. But he hid from the media. He would not talk to him. He really probably got off on all the media and the tabloids following him everywhere he went.
I totally agree with that.
Because you could see the smirk on his face, like, yeah, I'm famous now.
He was eating it alive. He loved every second of it, it looked like.
So his attorney, he didn't even have an attorney yet. It was like he was playing his own attorney.
In a sense.
So he went on he invited different reporters into their house to tell his side of the story. The one that got me is when he went on, I don't remember what
Diane Sawyer?
Yeah, with Diane Sawyer. I don't know what the name of the show was. He told her Laci knew about the affair.
Yes, he did.
He told everybody else.
And she was perfectly okay with it. And Diane Sawyer even pushed back, was like, so
you're telling me.
An emotional, hormonal, 8.5 month pregnant wife is told by her husband, hey, I've been having an affair on you, and she's just perfectly fine and okay with it? Nah, bro. That doesn't work.
No. And no alternate universe would that ever be okay. He responds with, people will never know how our relationship was.
Right.
That stuck out to me when I heard I don't remember. It was her mom who said they really never knew him, but she was sure that Laci never really knew who her husband was. I paused. I sat straight up and said, you're telling me you're going to marry somebody and not know who they are? Now, they got married young.
They did. Early mid-20s. I think right out of college.
Or maybe while they were in college. I don't know. Either way. She was 26 when she was killed?
27.
27.
Yep.
They'd been married that long? She was ready to have kids. He wasn't. She comes up pregnant. I have seen this in my own friend.
Yes, you have.
He was hardcore against having kids. She pulled the goalie.
Pulled the goalie without telling the team. You don't want to do that.
Now, he didn't kill her, but it did end in divorce.
It did. And that's, I can see where that's going to happen. That makes sense that's going to happen.
Right. But murder?
Murder.
You took her and that kid away from her friends, her family. We will never know what she might have done for the world
or the impact
for people around her
that either her or the son could have had, because there was.
You just wanted to kill her to get rid of her, make the situation go away.
Yeah, and I
want to be with this other woman, which was even more odd because she already had a kid.
She did have a kid,
and she even said he was so great with her.
He did, yeah, or she did.
So
it didn't
nothing
add up.
added up.
And apparently, like, even to date, he has not ever admitted to this. Like, I mean, here we are 20 years later.
Right.
And has never admitted to it whatsoever. Now, he did receive the death penalty, but it was overturned in 2020.
2020?
Yeah.
Because
16 years later.
One of his family members was
Got a law
not
degree.
happy about the death penalty, so they got their
Life in prison without parole.
law degree and started fighting for him. So now he's going to live. And now we see in May, the Innocence Project is now wanting DNA to see was it like a duct tape that was on her clothing or something?
Yeah, something. Sure.
I absolutely love the Innocence Project.
So do I.
Started here in Alabama.
Yes, it did.
There's even an absolutely beautiful movie about it. But I'm questioning this one. I know everyone is innocent until proven guilty. But there are way too many red flags that tell you this guy, it's like OJ.
Totally.
It doesn't fit. I'm putting on the glove, it doesn't fit. He got off. He didn't get in trouble for killing Nicole, but he wrote a book about it. If I did it,
this is how I
would.
Yeah. So, I mean, no, he's
if that doesn't tell you that he was guilty.
Totally.
Everybody knows the juice was.
The juice was loose.
But not knowing your husband. That irritated me. How do you marry somebody you don't think you know? I understand that they got married really young, but people get married younger.
They do, and I don't get that either. I mean, you should know that you know that you know.
I do understand that people change, and some change for the better, some change for the worse. Mm-hmm. But how disconnected do you have to be to not notice that change for the worse? I will say this guy is not sure. He's like 51 when that was.
Yeah, probably.
He was 51 now. He's been in jail since 2004.
20 years.
There's no way he has changed because he hasn't been able to be in the world to see real change. He was a narcissist.
Oh, totally.
He was the victim in this situation.
Totally.
Completely changed everything around. He manipulated the girlfriend, his wife,
the families, everybody.
His own family.
Yep.
That to me tells me that they definitely were disconnected and did not have a church. They didn't surround themselves by people who would hold them accountable. He did travel a lot.
We traveled a ton for work, which I get is a real thing. It happens.
But now they're questioning, was he really traveling for work?
Was he? But no, I think he was actually.
He was acting on things. So who knows how many other girls were actually out there?
There could have been.
Was he setting up his next situationship?
It's almost what it seemed like.
He had to get rid of this girl before he can meet this other girl to get rid of her. I mean, people go missing all the time. But that was the first word you chose on the day she was killed.
Which was just crazy. Crazy to use that word. But real quick, because we only have a few minutes left, the last thing that really made us go, what? Mm-hmm.
I got my statistics right here. Sorry, my mouth.
All right, I'll while you pull that up. So at the very end,
I wish I had the exact quote what the mother said.
What the mother said was she has had so many women reach out to her since all of this that has thanked her for all this that happened, to make them realize and to be able to get out of their relationship before this happened to them, that she has saved so many women from this exact situation. And that just made us go like, well, what's the definition of so many right here? And I guarantee, I know this has probably saved some women from a situation like this. Some.
They saw some red flags. Sure.
But to even go as far as murder and so many,
definition of many for different people vary.
That makes me think like
for her could be 3.
That makes me think like, what are we doing? Many. So there's so many women who are around who think, yeah, my husband might murder me.
Why is that in your head?
How do we get to that point? How do we get to the point to even let that thought trickle into our brains? I'm in such a terrible relationship. He may murder me. And I don't want to discount, abuse of physical and verbal and emotional and all that is real and it happens. But to go as far as saying murder is mind blowing to me. Then
the criminal investigator woman said that 50%, it was the number one leading death amongst pregnant females is suicide or murder. No, she just said it was death. We looked that up.
The number one reason for death for pregnant women is murder and suicide. Period.
I said,
It's the leading cause. I was like,
but then
wait.
It was for people who were killed.
Well, that was the stat we looked up. So what we did is like, okay,
what
are we saying? So many. So we looked it up and apparently there's a study that 50% of all women who are murdered are killed by their spouse.
I said, that's not possible.
I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around that one. It does happen. But at that type of rate, 50% of all women who are murdered, it happens from a spouse or intimate partner.
Okay. Get this. If 50% is accurate, as of May 2024, the average divorce rate in the United States is 42%. Mm-hmm. 42% is the divorce rate. Okay? So is it 50% of the remaining, 68%
that
are being murdered?
Well, not to total, but
think about it. If they're getting divorced, they're not getting murdered.
It's saving lives, I guess.
That makes no sense.
It was just such a wild stat that
it's the same stat as divorce rate as being murdered by your spouse.
Yes, that 50% of all women who are murdered, it happens by a spouse. And another one we saw was worldwide. I think it was last year. There were 47,000 women who were killed, who were murdered. So by that rate means that 23,500 of them were murdered by a spouse or intimate partner. And if that were the case, I feel like we would hear more about that. There would be more of these cases because people love this stuff.
Yes. And maybe that's why there are so many murder mystery shows.
Maybe so. And maybe you and I are the ones who are so naive.
Maybe we are.
To think that, no, there's not that much evil. And yes, I understand there's a lot of bad and a lot of evil in the world, but not to that level.
I'm trying to remember the letters that were used. It was IVP, intimate violent
partner, or IPV, intimate partner violence.
That is what it's called.
Yes.
Why can't you just say domestic violence? And that's what it is.
It's all, well, it is. It is. And I guess leads to
Men and
this.
women get frustrated and typically hit each other.
Well, we're bad, broken people. And that's what bad, broken people do is they act out and they perform acts of violence because that's our sinful human nature. Is that, I mean, you read throughout the Bible, there's nothing but murder. There's a whole lot of murder throughout there.
So people get shot over shoes.
People get shot over Alabama football games
Was
too.
going there next.
'Cause people are stupid. It's a freaking sport. You don't even have any ties to the people playing. You get so angry because a 20-year-old dropped a pass. Who cares?
Apparently, they do.
You don't even play. You weren't good enough. Give it up. Live your life. Love your family. Be productive.
Dude.
Try and provide value to people's lives.
Get a hobby.
Something other than watching football if it makes you do that. But it was a mind-blowing stat to think that there's that many out there. And if there is, boy, things are worse than I thought.
Of the estimated 4,970 female victims of murder and non-manslaughter in 2021, data reported that law enforcement agencies indicated that 34% were killed by their partner, by their intimate partner. By comparison to about 6% of the 17,970 males murdered that year were victims of intimate partner homicide.
It's a mind-blowing stat. It's one of those ones that's so difficult for me.
Now, we did see that the ratio for 2020
was way up.
I get that.
Way up. COVID.
Everything shut down.
Shut down.
They
People
were
are
all
spending
living
more
in the same house together. Nobody could go out and do anything. They could not stand each other. They knew too much about each other and didn't like what they knew about each other because they were not able to go to work. They had to spend that 8 hours together while they were at work.
Yep.
That you got that distance from each other. And they hated each other.
Yeah,
they had to put an end to them. Oh, it wasn't. They died of COVID.
Well, see,
no, you shut up.
2020 elevated divorces and births because people weren't doing what they would normally do. It was a crazy stat. As soon as we finished watching, you're like, we have to talk about this. So I would say maybe, just maybe, a way to prevent stuff like this from happening and to prevent all the negative and all the red flags, maybe be a little more intentional about getting to know who your spouse is, doing life with them, including them in all that you do.
Sorry.
That may help prevent this as long as reduce the amount of divorces. But we got to go. If you have not seen the documentary, watch it.
Or don't, because it'll make you mad.
Or don't. It's a horrible, horrible tragedy.
I liked her friends too.
Her friends were great.
Her
friends were freaking.
We didn't know.
No, her friends were
We have
amazing.
those hard conversations now because
You have to.
it needs to be
You
done.
have to. Transparency is key. But we got to go. Any final thoughts?
No. I
All
need
right.
to watch something else so I'm not as irritated.
Dumb and Dumber. That'll make you happy. God, we love you. We are just so thankful for you. We are so thankful for what you're doing. We're thankful for this platform. And God, just reaching out to you on behalf of all the people who go through this. Laci's family who's still struggling with this. God, it's just proof that we need more of you. This is not the way you designed it. The anger, the bitterness, the hatred, the selfishness that we have is not how you design things. That we are meant to live our lives for other people. That we are meant to put ourselves last behind other people. And if we all did that, we'd be able to see the world the way you wanted it. We'd be able to see your true love in all of us. And God, I just pray that is what is felt. I pray people will just turn their hearts to you, soften their hearts, just open their minds to you and what it is that you offer and the peace that you offer for our lives, God, because you're the only one who can do it. You're the only one who can get us through it. And you are the only way to truly find peace and joy in our lives. And God, I'm so thankful that we've experienced that. I pray for so many others that they will experience it too. We know that you win. At the end of the day, you win. We like winning. Thank you for Jesus. Thank you for all that you do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. label.